Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm just going to give it 30 seconds quickly just to allow everybody to join the session as everyone starts to join. Please just take this time now just to put where you're coming from in the chat feature there. I know we have people from the Thompson, Okanagan, as well as the whole province and maybe even beyond that. So please feel free to share that in the chat feature. Fantastic. I think that's enough time now to allow everybody to join. It's great to see so many people on the session today and around supporting mental health and managing uncertainty. And if you don't know me, I'm Ryan Scott and I'm the digital marketing specialist at the Thompson Okanagan Tourism Association. I'm really excited to bring this very important topic to you today. Now, before I go any further, I'd love to respectfully acknowledge that I'm joining you from the unceded, ancestral and traditional territory of the Silks and the Inuit people. Now, today's session is brought to you in partnership with the BC Tourism Resiliency Network, the Canadian Mental Health Association, and most importantly, Aaryn Secker from Thoughtful, a social enterprise of the CMHA Kelowna branch. Now, if you saw the last session with Aaryn, then you'll know that it was brilliant, and we received so much positive feedback that we really wanted to continue this subject discussion and bring you some more valuable support and information as we come to the end of the year. Now, Aaryn, if you don't know her, she has 10 years experience as an educator with 8 years focused on health promotion. She collaborates with workplaces to help them build safe and healthy environments for their staff and clients to thrive. Now, as we begin the webinar session today, I welcome you to engage in the chat feature and communicate with each other. These webinars are unfortunately some of the rare opportunities our industry can meet right now, and I want to encourage as much communication as we can. We do ask that all of the Q&A questions are put in that Q&A section on Zoom, and if you have any questions or problems with that, then please reach out. Myself and Lucy are monitoring these areas, and we'll be feeding in those Q&A questions at the end of the session. Now, I don't want to delay it any further because I know that Aaryn has some really valuable information to share with you, so I'd like to introduce her now to deliver our session. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Ryan, and thanks for TOTA for hosting this webinar and having me back. And thanks to all of the participants who are currently here and watching us this afternoon. So my name is Aaryn Secker. As Ryan said, I work for the Canadian Mental Health Association in Kelowna. In particular, I run our social enterprise called Thoughtful, which provides workplace training and advising services. We are going to talk about navigating uncertainty for this next hour and a half. I will check in with Ryan and Lucy from TOTA a couple times throughout this presentation to find out if there are any questions or comments in the chat that would enrich the presentation. And then I'll also make sure that there's some time for some questions at the end. And we can also send out these slides and a resource sheet for participants afterwards. So if you'd like to take notes, feel free to do that, but don't worry about it if you'd like to just sit and actually just take this in instead. I am going to just start and let you know or remind you that this presentation is a lot about our self-management skills, our self-care skills, and what we can do to try and stay well personally, emotionally, physically. I am not a business advisor. I'm not a financial advisor. So I do just want to be clear that there are some really tough realities and acknowledge that there's some very tough realities that folks are experiencing right now. And I'm here to hopefully refresh or remind or impart a few skills that'll help you to manage during these tough times. But none of this is meant to minimize or diminish the experiences that you're having. So I do know that there is a really tough situation financially for a lot of people right now, for your businesses, maybe your personal finances are tied into these. So I do want to just acknowledge and honor that none of this is easy. Nothing that I'm saying here today is expecting it to be easy for you, but hopefully we can do the best that we can in these situations, and hopefully some of these takeaways can be helpful to you. And also, if you are someone in a leadership role, if you're a manager, a supervisor, an employer, whether you're doing well yourself or not, perhaps you'll be able to take some of this information or these skills and to share them or role model them for your employees as well. So we do all have a part to play in this, whether you're currently doing fairly well, keeping it together fairly well, or not. Hopefully there'll still be something here for you to take away. So as Ryan said, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A function in Zoom. There is also the chat function if you have any thoughts or ideas. I am here to impart some of what we know are the promising or best practices, but by no means do I have all of the information that's available, and you are the experts in your jobs and in your roles and your industry. So if you have anything that would help others to manage or things that you've learned over these last few months, do please feel free to share those, and we'll make sure that everyone else can get some of that information and that knowledge from you. My brief outline for this hour and a half that I think is probably going to fly by quite quickly here, so I'll try not to go down any rabbit holes. We're going to start with this idea of our circle of control. So understanding what's within our control and what's outside of it. And that's important because it sets the foundation for the rest of what we're going to talk about this afternoon, as well as most other skills, tips, and tricks you might pick up along the way. It really does come back to this foundation of what is and is not within our circle of control. Even before COVID-19, when I was doing presentations just very basically on stress management, this again is just a very foundational piece of content. We're going to talk briefly about goals and milestones, how we might need to right size or adjust some of those goals that we had for ourselves this year, personally and professionally, and again, perhaps for our businesses. We're going to talk about some safe ways to build connection while we're not supposed to really be mingling or mixing households right now, and the holidays are either approaching, or if you celebrate Hanukkah, you're already perhaps like right in this and trying to manage and figure out how to stay connected with your family. And we're going to end with some notes on compassion and empathy for ourselves and others, and then I'll share some resources for you at the end. And as I said, in between, I'll check in here and there to find out if there's any other questions or comments along the way. Of course, there's way more about navigating uncertainty than we could possibly fit into an hour and a half, but I hope that this is a few building blocks or pieces of the puzzle to help you to go forth and to learn some more. So we'll start with this circle of control, and I'm going to go through a few examples in just a moment to help make it a little bit more clear, but this is just a summary of this concept. And there was actually a really cute little image that was going around earlier in the pandemic. You might have seen it on LinkedIn. It was shared quite often, in Facebook. It had a little fox on it, and it was talking about this exact same idea. I've just expanded this a little bit more broadly than what that image had. But again, it's very foundational to all sorts of things, like if you were doing talk therapy, if you're working with a counselor, and you probably actually do a lot of this sort of planning and preparation without even realizing it. So the idea here is that our circle of concern, the things that worry us, the things that cause us stress and anxiety, that circle can be quite wide. So you'll see it's the largest circle on the screen. So there's a lot of things that will fall into our circle of concern. More narrow than that is our circle of influence. So this is where we actually have some ability to influence what's going to happen related to those concerns, or how we can manage those concerns, or maybe change the direction of where they're going. And then you'll see we have an even smaller circle of control. So at the end of the day, the things that we can actually definitively control isn't a lot. And I am a control freak. I'll say that first. I'll just say that right off the bat. This is really hard for me. And I think it's probably hard for a lot of you on the call. A lot of you are probably very high achievers. And you might be business owners, managers, supervisors, leaders informally in your workplaces. So you're probably in a similar situation to me, where acknowledging a very small circle of control is probably very difficult. So I do want to honor that and acknowledge that first. So again, our circle of concern, probably quite large, especially in times like this. It might include other people. It might be just about our own selves. It might be about really big world events or situations. But what we know is that if we are spending all of our energy and time in that circle of concern, so really just worrying, trying to control things that we have no control or influence on, we know that that's very unproductive. And it also contributes to really high feelings of hopelessness, right? Because you feel like you're trying and nothing is happening here. So hopelessness, fatigue, burnout, and a lot of us, again, are probably feeling that way right now. And so maybe if we can recognize where we want to put our energy instead and make that concerted effort, we might find that it's a little bit more productive, and we might feel a little bit more empowered. So acknowledging a small circle of control on one hand can be very scary, to let go of things or to try and let go of things. But on the other hand, it can actually be very empowering because we are putting our energy where it will actually do something. It'll actually hopefully do some good. So it's most productive to put our energy into our circle of control, unproductive to put our energy and our time and our effort only into that circle of concern. So things beyond our influence and control. And then in the middle here is that circle of influence. And so this can be a little bit tricky as well because we have some influence here, hence why it's called that. We have some control, but not full control. And so what we need to do when it comes to our circle of influence is find that balance and have those boundaries around how much energy and time I'm going to put here, right? How much is actually going to be productive and how much is going to be unproductive. And that's a bit of a tipping point or a balancing point. So just to help this make a little bit more sense, I'm going to go through a couple of examples and then I'll go through a few lists as well of other things that might fall into these different circles. So one example, and I'm going to use this one twice because newsflash, we are in a pandemic, so we might as well use the one that's top of mind. So something that's probably in most people's circle of concern right now could be something like any major world event. So for example, the pandemic. We are not going to just end this in one day. Not anyone on this webinar is going to just snap their fingers and end the pandemic. And similarly, no one on this call and not one individual actually set into motion the events of this pandemic, right? It's not just one person who controls these things. And so it's not going to be one person who starts or stops it. So putting all of our energy into the idea of starting or stopping something when it's outside of our control, right, understandably is not going to get us very far. But there are some things right now that are within our circle of influence. So for example, it might be the direction of government. So you might not be able to control the provincial guidelines or health orders that happen on a day-to-day basis, right? You don't have singular control over that, but we do have some influence over the direction of government. So for example, advocating to keep your industry, your sector top of mind. So again, not full control, but certainly some influence. And so what you'd have to do is decide, how much energy am I going to put into this? Maybe it's through advocacy, letter writing or emails. How much do I want to put into control here or effort into here, energy into here? And then where do I need to sometimes take a step back and take a break? And then as far as what's actually within our control, it is that specific advocacy that we do, right? So picking up the phone and calling people, writing letters to government, to your associations, to your advocacy groups, the specific things that you say, that you write, that you do, that is within your control, right? And then we can see again, it kind of spreads outwards. So the things that you do specifically can have an influence on the government, but at the end of the day, we can't control the major world event itself, right? So hopefully that makes some sense. And I'll go through another example here. So once again, if the pandemic is part of our circle of concern, we might want to have some influence over the actions of our family, our immediate close family or friends. So we probably don't have much influence or control over strangers, but we might have some influence over those actions of our close family and friends. So for example, we could encourage them to be taking some reasonable precautions, right? So we don't have control over it, but we can encourage this. So for example, you might say, I have a family member who is immunocompromised. They might be at a higher risk. I might call them and say, I'd really like it if you could stay home a bit more right now. I'm just worried about your safety. So you might say, can I pick up your groceries for you? Right? You might be able to offer to do something like that to help them to take precautions. And then at the end of the day, your family member can say yes or no. So if they say no, you don't have control over that. You'll have to find a way to accept that and to move on, right? You'll have to be able to let go of that, but there's something there that you might be able to influence. And then similarly, the things that are within your control include the precautions that you actually take for yourself. So those things like hand washing, wearing a mask consistently, and so on. So pretty straightforward examples, I hope, but let's look at a few other things that maybe go a little bit beyond the straightforward. So other things that are in your circle of concern, potentially anyways, but so again, you don't have influence or control over these. Things like your past actions, and I know this is a really tough one if you've ever been laying in bed, replaying your day or your week over and over and over again in your head. You might feel like you want to do something about this, but of course you can't actually change the past. So unless you have a time machine, you're going to have to decide how you can either do something differently in the future. Maybe it's something like apologizing or checking back in with somebody, but you can't actually change what happened before. Similarly, the thoughts, beliefs, and actions of most people are going to be outside of your control and even outside of your influence. So strangers halfway across the world, very unlikely that you're going to have much influence on them and definitely no control over them. Things like provincial orders, like I said, those day-to-day orders and guidelines, we don't have direct control over them. We can influence the direction of government, but we can't actually decide what these orders are going to be on a day-to-day basis. Other things we might have concern about or might be causing us a headache right now, things like the weather. So of course we could have probably another full day discussion about climate change, but as far as the actual day-to-day weather goes, we can't control that, right? We don't even have really any influence over that. So if it's gonna snow tomorrow, it's gonna snow tomorrow. If it's not, nothing that I can do about it. Similarly with the seasons, right? If we are in Canada right now, we are in winter. It's not even coming anymore. When winter is coming, actually it's here. We can't control that, right? That's where we are. That's the seasonality of where we live. The days are going to be shorter on all of that stuff that comes with winter. Things like traffic patterns, and then also a lot of illnesses. So we'll talk about our circle of influence and control here in a moment and how that plays into illnesses and health. But the reality is that maybe it's tied to your genetics, environmental situations you couldn't control, but just the reality that a lot of illnesses are outside of our control and our influence, even though they might, of course, be concerning to us. So again, in the chat, if you've got any other examples, feel free to put them in there. But I think that this probably captures a lot of the big ones right now. As far as where our influence goes, so remember that this narrows in a little bit from our circle of concern. I already mentioned we might have some influence over the actions and beliefs of close family or friends, direction of government, your own health. So there's some control you have and some that you don't. And then also things like your child's future. So if you have kids or you're a caregiver, you might be very frustrated sometimes about the decisions that young people make. And you'll know firsthand that you can't necessarily control those decisions or those beliefs, but hopefully we can influence and give them the best start or the best likelihood that they can. And then how we do that, how we actually exert our influence, there's a number of ways we can do it. It might be through role modeling, having conversations, including some really tough conversations sometimes. So you'll know communication here is actually a really big part of this. So sometimes those tough conversations, leaning into some discomfort. There's tons and tons of books and resources on how we can do this in a way that is actually productive. Through things like voting, our advocacy, like I said, and then also through setting our boundaries. And then as I mentioned at the top, if you're a manager, a supervisor, an employer, you could do a lot of things to influence your employees. And of course, you can have your policies and procedures at work, which might be under your control. But the actual day-to-day actions and behaviors of employees would be something else that would just be under influence and not full control. Again, as much as it may be frustrating at times. And then what is actually within our control is just what we choose to believe and then how we want to act on those beliefs. You'll notice that I don't even have your thoughts in here as your control. So thoughts will pop into our head. We don't always have control into what pops into the head. Those thoughts that first appear, again, those things that might be swirling around when we're trying to go to sleep. But the ones that we lean into, the ones that we accept as truth, we do have control over that to a large extent. And what we really want to do is notice when our thoughts and our actions are out of alignment with our values. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more at the end when I talk about compassion and empathy for ourselves and others. But we really want to start to recognize, am I leaning into thoughts that don't actually align with what I truly believe and how I truly want to see the world? So if I generally think that most people are doing their best with what they have or doing their best in tough situations, am I treating them that way? Right? Am I cutting people some slack? Am I giving people some benefit of the doubt? Am I being a little bit more kind to them, taking some time, being a bit more patient? Or am I being quick to judge, right? Am I being quick to raise my voice, to let my temper get the best of me? If I'm doing that, then I'm probably not living in line with those values, right? And that might be just a reflection time for us to reevaluate and then try to get back into alignment, right? So I'll talk about this again in a moment, but really it is just a period of time. Right? Things can be different, things will be different, things have been different in the past. And so we still want to make sure that the way that we act and the way that we carry ourselves right now still reflects how we want to be remembered, how we want to be thought of, and our actual view of the world. So just a quick prompt there to maybe reflect on how often have we been out of alignment over these last few weeks or these few months? What do we maybe need to do and make some time for, or set an intention to make sure that we're back into alignment with our values? If you've done any other workshops with me or with CMHA, you know that we really lean into our values quite often. That's what guides us when we are in that really gray area of life. If we are not in touch with our values, we're going to have a lot more stress and anxiety and feelings of helplessness because we really won't feel like we have any direction. So really important that we get in touch with our values. As a family, this is something else you can do and sit down and have discussions about these. You know, if we're noticing that tension is very high, people are getting very irritable or worked up easily, can we sit down and do a group reflection on what our values are as a family? And it's okay if they're a little bit different as individuals, but generally as a family, what's important to us? What do we want to make sure that we do? And how are we going to act and behave moving forward? And you can also do this in the workplace too. So again, if you're a manager or supervisor, you can sit down and have a discussion to reconnect with your workplace values. Right? What is it that you want to be known for as a business? Right? Is it that family operation? Well, are we actually leaning into our family right now? Are we pushing our family away? Are we actually hearing from everybody who's supposed to be at the table? If it's really about customer experience, if that's a really important value to us, what are we doing to make sure that customers are feeling safe and heard, right, and comfortable? So these discussions are very foundational, and the work that we do here, leaning into these discussions now, is going to serve us in the long term. So this isn't about just wasting a bunch of time during a pandemic or a one-off event. Everything that we do now can have an impact on the success of our business, our own health, the health of our friends, family, and coworkers moving forward. So it really, I think, is worth the investment. And as I said, we can't necessarily control all of the thoughts that pop into our head, but we can control the stories that we tell ourselves, and we can control which ones we want to believe. So if we have a thought in our head that pops up, or a thinking pattern that's popping up into our head, we can gently challenge it. So you're not going to go from worst case scenario to best case scenario. You still have to be practical and pragmatic here. But you might be able to say, you know, what is actually the evidence that I have for this? What are the alternatives? What are the other realistic alternatives that might actually be happening here? So these are just a few examples of thinking traps that tend to get us kind of stuck in a rut or exerting our energy again, where it's not going to have any benefit to our lives. These are not all of the thinking traps that are out there, but they're certainly some of the most common ones that I'm hearing right now. And as I said off the top too, again, this is not to make light of the situation that you're experiencing. None of this is saying that you should just pull up your bootstraps and get over it. That is not realistic, and that is not helpful either. This is about those day-to-day thoughts that are popping into our head that are keeping us from being productive or pragmatic or helpful, keeping us from being kind, keeping us from being overall optimistic. These are the thoughts that we want to notice and start to challenge. So for example, there's one called fortune telling. This is exactly what it sounds like. You think you know what's going to happen in the future, generally with a negative or gloomy outlook. So you might be thinking things like our industry will never recover, right? Well, we don't actually have evidence for that, right? This is definitely a priority for many people. And I can tell you as someone who's not embedded in your industry that many of us are very concerned about the industry and actually are also doing advocacy work, right, to try and support it. So we don't necessarily know this. In fact, there's a lot of evidence to the contrary. Another example of fortune telling would be nothing's going to change anyways. So again, why would I invest time in my staff? Why would I invest time having a discussion about values with my family? Nothing's going to change anyways. And in fact, what we know is that the only constant in life is change. And so instead of assuming that the change is going to be negative, can we challenge that and say, well, change can go either way. Maybe there can be some positive change here as well. And it might be as simple as that, maybe, right? It's not necessarily saying nothing to everything. Maybe there could be some positive change. And that alone, just that maybe, that curiosity, that slight optimism, that can be enough for many people to just help to kind of neutralize that stress spiral or that anxiety spiral that you might be feeling. Another common thinking trap is either or thinking or black and white thinking. So you might be thinking things to yourself like, if it's not going to be perfect, it's not even worth trying. So why would I revise my policies or procedures? They're not going to be perfect. They're going to have to keep being revised. So why would I even bother? Right? Holds us back, that fear of failure, fear of being vulnerable, not productive. Another example for a personal example might be I overdid it last night. Maybe you reached for that bottle of wine when you said you weren't going to. And now maybe you think, well, my whole week of healthy changes is out the window, right? I said I wasn't going to drink this week. I drank on a Wednesday. And now what's the point? I might as well just keep drinking, right? Or I might as well just throw my whole salads, right? My diet, my healthy eating out the window, right? Or sit on the couch and just watch Netflix because I didn't go for that walk yesterday that I said I was going to go for. Another example is mind reading, and this can go both ways. So oftentimes it's thinking you know what someone else is thinking. So for example, you might think no one cares about my business, or perhaps they're all just waiting for me to mess up, right? Whether that's my family or my direct reports, my employees, they're all just waiting for me to mess up. So again, we can challenge that and think, well, I'm sure some people do care, right? Some people do believe in me, or maybe this is a chance to prove them wrong. And then it can go the other way too, where you assume people should be able to read your mind. And again, this is really hinders communication, where you think people should just know what I'm going through. People should just know that I'm upset. They should just know that I'm stressed. They should just know what it is that I want. Anyone who's in a relationship, you probably do this on a daily basis. Again, guilty as charged, where you just assume, well, they should just know. But what we know over and over again is that clear communication is extremely important. And then another example is catastrophizing. So this is assuming the worst case scenario and underestimating your ability to cope. So again, we're not going to say worst to best, but we might want to say, I actually have gotten through some really tough times before, right? I have had financial challenges before. There were times where people didn't believe in me or they didn't seem to care, but I'm here today. I clearly got through it. What were some of those skills that I used? Who were the people I was able to lean on, right? What community resources were out there? What's out there now that maybe wasn't there before that can make things a little bit easier for me? So instead of it's the worst case, I can't do it, I'm not going to bother, we gently challenge that. Just turn it just a little bit slightly, or if you think of it kind of almost like a speedometer, we're just moving the needle just a little bit, right? Just getting a little bit of speed up there to try and be a little bit more productive. And so before I move on to the next point, we're going to talk about some right sizing of goals. Just quickly, Ryan or Lucy, is there anything in the Q&A or the chat that would be good for me to know?
We're all good for now, so you can continue, Aaryn.
Great, thanks. Okay, and then again, this might be professional goals, this might be personal goals, but a lot of us probably are, especially again as high achievers, really challenged right now with not being where we thought we would be in this year, right? All of those goals and hopes and dreams we had for 2020, for many of us, they've been dashed or they've definitely had to look a lot different. And so one way of trying to come to terms with this, to still have goals and be productive and motivated, but not to feel defeated or that, again, there's no point in trying. A really simple activity to do is to really just break down what those goals and milestones were for this year and that you would want to carry into next year, and actually assign them different levels of gold, silver, and bronze, right? So what was the thing I really wanted to achieve? What would have been perfection this year? That goes for gold. And then we go and we try to right size it a little bit. And we say, well, what would the silver medal version of this be? Breaking it down, would it still potentially be doable? Would it still be satisfactory? Would it still be moving me in the right direction? And even that still might seem like it's a little bit much, right? We don't really know what next year is going to bring. So maybe we break it down actually into the bronze medal. What would be a bronze medal version of our goal? Something that is attainable, something that we actually can do. And again, it might end up looking very different from what the gold medal idea was. And so I'll use the example of running a marathon. It's an example, but I think you can actually think of it a little bit more, I don't know, as an analogy, I suppose. It's a bit more of an analogy than an example. And if anyone here does run marathons, again, please don't laugh at me. This is not my goal to run a marathon. I'm happy to walk. But as an analogy, we'll look at the idea of running a marathon. So your gold medal version of running a marathon, if it was for 2020, it might have been that you were going to compete in an event in the fall, right? You were going to run a formal race. You're picturing all of those people who are there cheering you on, family and friends cheering you on, crossing that finish line, getting your towel at the end, and your little your ribbon or your medal at the end. That might have been your gold goal for this year. And then of course we know that most of those events were canceled. Maybe needs for your business, your work-life balance were getting in the way. You had to come up with an impromptu childcare situation or caring for a parent or a grandparent in this situation. And so A, the event was canceled, and B, your commitments changed. So that gold level wasn't going to necessarily happen. The bronze of that might have been that I still run a marathon. It's just not a formal one. It's not at a formal event. I don't have a crowd. I don't have anything really to show for it at the end except for my own satisfaction. So maybe some people were able to still achieve this. Right? So not quite the same as gold, still motivating, still kept me training and practicing, and I still felt like I accomplished something. And then other folks might have said that, you know what, even just carving out those hours in the day, that whole afternoon on a weekend, that was not going to happen, right? Actually working up to that distance this year, that wasn't going to happen. So maybe your bronze was, I accumulated over the course of the year the same kilometers that would have been in that marathon. So I broke it down over a few months and I just did a few kilometers at a time, but it kept me active. It kept me focused on the prize. And then next year, maybe I can try again for that gold medal or at least that silver medal, right? So you're breaking it down into steps, into things that are actually doable, instead of just saying, I'm going to throw that whole goal out the window, right? Or that whole milestone or that whole achievement out the window. I'm still going to move in that direction. I'm still going to break it down into bite-sized pieces so I can feel empowered and accomplished, even if it looks very, very different. So for a lot of folks, I think that analogy hopefully works, the gold, silver, and bronze. If you're a bit more like me, maybe you like checklists, you just like to actually break things down into tables and lists. If that's the case, this is exactly the same idea in just a slightly different format. So another way to try and right size or adapt your goals might be to check in again with those values, right? What is actually driving your goal? So if it was to run a marathon, was it that sense of accomplishment? Was it a bucket list item that you had? Maybe it was for physical activity. You just wanted to motivate yourself to move your body more. If it was just for physical activity, then we could go down the list and say, well, is the goal still realistic? Well, it's definitely realistic to still get some physical activity, right? It's still realistic to move my body, even if that marathon is not. Is it time sensitive? Well, moving my body might still be time sensitive. I want to make sure I'm still doing this. But at the end of the day, if I run a marathon next year or the year after, does it really matter? Right? Maybe, maybe not. It can be broken into smaller milestones. So like I said, maybe it's a few kilometers at a time. Maybe it's 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers at a time, or fewer. And then is there another way to achieve it? So maybe I actually throw out running altogether, but I decided that I'm going to go for bike rides with my family, right? So if it's still moving my body, connecting with family, there might be a different way to do this. And then another important question that sometimes we overlook, especially if you are a high achiever or you're used to taking everything onto yourself, is that reminder of who could help, right? Is there someone who can help with childcare? Is there someone who can help pick up some of the groceries this week so I can make sure I actually go for a run? Is there someone who can pick up the kids from school this time, or a way that they can walk home themselves and feel safe? Who can help? What can be done differently to help me to actually reach those goals, instead of putting them to the side and not engaging in them at all? So just a few reminders there of how we can still, again, feel empowered, feel motivated, but possibly have to look at it very, very differently this year. And now I'm going to move into some of these ways that we can build connection and stay connected, even with the current health orders. So I'm going to start with virtual time because I think that this is just kind of the elephant in the room. We're all on a webinar right now. Everything seems to be virtual right now. So I'm going to talk about some ways to make virtual time work for you, but don't get worried. I'm very much going to talk about disconnecting too. So some of us are probably just absolutely sick of staring at a screen, even right now. And I get that, I feel that. So I promise, talk about some things that are not virtual after this. But for those who are still looking to make virtual time work for you, there's a few things to keep in mind. So one is that over the years, most of us have become accustomed to our brains basically associating things like webinars or online meetings or classes as a chance to multitask or a chance to tune out, right? We really do feel like the screen is a barrier rather than there's actual people on the other end of that. And again, I'm so guilty of this too, so I'm not trying to chastise anyone who's doing this right now. But even up into very recently, I'd put on a webinar and I'd go and I'd be cleaning in the house or I'd be looking at my phone. It's just kind of on in the background. I'm checking emails. Sometimes you got to just do that, right? Sometimes you really just don't have enough hours in the day. But more often than not, it's because our brain has made that association now, right? I put on something on a screen and I check out. And so one of the ways to make virtual time work for you is that when it is important, when it's actually important to virtual time, so maybe it's a conversation with friends or family, maybe it's a really important work meeting, we have to actually train our brain back to making that event central, right? So actually paying attention and being present when it's important to do so. So again, it's not always going to be important, but it might actually be a real challenge for us to adjust that thinking and that connection in our brain when we're not used to doing it. So you might find that you automatically get kind of checked out during a virtual get together. And so you'll have to actually work on that to stay connected, to remind yourself that there's another person there. You might have to talk more or chime in a little bit more often. You might have to put your own face on the screen off the screen, right? Or not be looking at yourself the whole time and make sure you're focusing on other people. But there's ways that you might have to train that. Put your phone into another room so you're not reaching for it. Putting your screen on full screen so you're not opening other browser windows. Things like that so you can make sure that you're actually focused. Then also realizing that if that's different for you, you're probably going to feel more tired afterwards, right? So don't plan a bunch of back-to-back virtual meetings or get-togethers with family and friends. Know that you'll probably feel pretty tired after that and plan to do something maybe like a walk around the block afterwards or making dinner or something that's away from a screen afterwards, because it really is tiring on our brains and our eyes. So being very present when you should be, and then checking out afterwards when you need to. And again, you're still going to multitask sometimes. Maybe you're doing that right now, I understand. But if we're really trying to make that virtual time work for social connection, for meaningful connection, we do need to be very present during those times. Another thing I would suggest is if you're spending a lot of your work day on a screen, either because you're working from home or maybe you're self-employed or your job just requires a lot of screen time, any social time or meaningful time after work that's on a screen, you want it to feel as different as possible from your work, right? So you still might not want to actually schedule just a bunch of Zoom calls with family and friends. You might want to have something more centralized that you're doing, such as playing a game or taking a class, just something that feels very different from work. So again, it can help reduce those feelings of fatigue. So some of the things that we can do are things like viewing parties. So maybe we're scheduling the same episode of a show to watch with friends or family. We don't have to have our screens showing our faces while we watch it, but you watch the show and then maybe you schedule a check-in afterwards, right? So you can talk all about the episode. So you've got something that you're centralized and you're talking about to guide that discussion. It's not just a free-for-all. So things like viewing parties. There's also lots of games that are available online. And this can also be good to add some humor, some laughter. We know, pre-pandemic, even laughing with friends and family really does build connection, really does relax us. So we can still do that here too. So some of the games that are available are just lots of card games. So I've heard of people actually teaching each other how to play bridge online. I'm from Ontario, so more East Coast, so playing euchre is something that's super popular for us. Hearts, so there's lots of different cards games you can play online. There's also a company called Jackbox that some people might have heard of, where you can stream games online and play them with your phones and on Zoom at the same time. And they've got things where you do impromptu presentations. There's something called Quiplash, which is like a Mad Libs game. There's trivia games, things like that are maybe, again, kind of centralizing what your focus is on. Lots of people have found virtual faith services locally. So if you're not able to attend a church service right now, but faith is something that's really integral to your life, checking out who locally has online faith services, but then also, again, not to just silver line everything, but one of the benefits right now of so much being online is you might actually be able to check out and find another church or a synagogue across the country and find out what they're offering. So maybe you can connect with a community somewhere else that you normally wouldn't communicate or connect with at all. Maybe you'll learn something, maybe there'll be some activities that they do that you really like, and you can actually bring that back to your local community as well. There's lots of online classes out there right now. Some of them are probably slowing down for the holidays, but in general, there's crafting and painting classes, as an example. I have friends who are taking a painting class, so they got a material list to pick up ahead of time. And then they have a facilitator who guides the classes over Zoom. But one of the benefits for that too is that, yes, you look at a screen sometimes, but you're also looking down at your canvas or your paper. And so you're doing something a little bit more tactile, and it's breaking up the screen time. And then I just wanted to have a quick note about online communities. So whether this is things like Facebook or Facebook groups or other forums, even the comment sections on news, just to really make sure that the time you're spending in these communities is, again, a beneficial time. It's a time that's serving you and contributing to wellness rather than doing the opposite. So sometimes what can happen with online communities is they can be really great places to find people with niche and similar interests as you, to build connection if you're otherwise quite isolated. But the downside can be that they can be a bit of an echo chamber. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody right now, but they can be an echo chamber. They can serve to kind of work us up or whip us up, to anger us, to incite, again, things that are maybe outside of our values or what we would normally want to lean into. So we do want to just make sure that we're being balanced here, that we're taking lots of breaks. And if we're finding that we close a screen and we're just feeling angry afterwards or sad or defeated, maybe that's a sign to us that that's not the best use of our time, right? Maybe that's a community that I need to park for a little while, step away from and do something else instead. And similarly, if we're spending a lot of time on social media, we tend to be comparing our best and worst days and the mundane just to people's best days. So most people really only post very curated, shiny, happy pictures of themselves, stories about what they're doing that are really positive, and they don't necessarily post the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so what we can tend to do, and again, there's a lot of evidence behind this, in particular with young people, but it happens with all ages. We scroll through and we're seeing how great everyone's life seems to be. And then we're thinking, well, I don't feel great. I don't think I look great. I'm not enjoying what's happening in my life. I must be inferior, or my life must be much worse than everybody else's. And we tend to do that very subconsciously. So again, noticing if I'm scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or my friends' photo albums, how am I feeling? What is this actually doing for me? What are the benefits and what are the downsides? And just trying to make some of that informed decision around it. And then, as I said, I promise there's a lot of things we should be doing to disconnect as well. So constant screen time is just not going to be healthy no matter how you're using it. So a suggestion would be to limit our news intake. Of course, we want to stay informed. And I know if you're concerned about your business, you need to know what's up and coming. What are people thinking about this? What's the direction? How's the wind blowing? But generally speaking, if we can limit it to a 10 or 15 minute check-in in the morning, then 10 or 15 check-in around dinner time, chances are we're going to be pretty well informed, that there won't be something that we need to know right that second. And we also just want to make sure we're not checking the news or really even social media right before bed. There's increasing evidence about just how the screens and the blue light maybe interferes with sleep, but also just it wakes up your brain again. You might be sitting there thinking about stuff you have no control over or no influence over, and it might keep you up at night to no good, right? For no reason, to no avail, for nothing productive. So I'd really encourage, that's why I say kind of that morning and then maybe dinner time check-ins, and then trying to turn it off and disconnect afterwards. I would also, just a quick reminder to really please think and check and think critically before we're sharing content online. Because we're more online than ever, there's also, of course, that influx of information that is, quite frankly, not correct, right? Or maybe not evidence-based. Or even if it is true, it might be only serving to agitate folks, right? So if someone is trying to take a break from news and social media, but they're just getting bombarded by text messages of really sad or upsetting articles, again, what's it really serving, right? We want to be informed, but we also do need to take care of ourselves and have some boundaries. And then before I go into some other things we can do offline, I'd encourage you to consider the difference between self-care and self-soothing. If you've participated in any of our Discovery College courses before, we do talk about this fairly often because it's another foundational piece of information. But over the course of the last 8 to 10 months, I've heard a lot of people talk about things that they are saying are self-care, but they're actually self-soothing. And the difference is that self-care, that tends to be the stuff that's actually the most difficult to do. That's the stuff like eating our vegetables, moving our bodies for physical activity, making sure we have enough time to sleep, leaning into those more healthy coping strategies, reaching out and having social connection even when we're tired. Self-care is that foundational stuff that serves us well in the long term, that really does help to contribute to overall wellness. But oftentimes in the moment, that's when it's the hardest to do it, right? When we need it the most, it can be the most of a challenge. And that's why sometimes we turn to things like self-soothing, which could be that whole weekend on Netflix in your pajamas, feeling so overwhelmed so you do nothing instead of anything, pushing people away and isolating further, reaching for that second, third, fourth, fifth glass of wine or bottle of beer, eating that junk food or all that takeout, right, over and over again. So these things here and there, we do need to do them, right? We do need to have self-soothing sometimes. It's kind of like a Band-Aid. Sometimes there's just a time and place for Band-Aids. And we probably will need to self-soothe more often during a pandemic. And when our businesses are facing challenges, our families facing a challenge, it's very natural we're going to self-soothe more. But if we do look at it as putting a Band-Aid on, sometimes we need to really do more than that, right? So if you have a weekend of self-soothing where you're really not doing much of anything, or you're doing some stuff that's maybe not as healthy, that's fine. Just be aware that that's what you are doing. Don't call it self-care, right? Say that's self-soothing. I needed to do that for myself this weekend. That's all right. But then I need to pay attention to what I'm doing during the weekdays or the next weekend coming up. And, you know, if I have one weekend of self-soothing in a month, but the other 3 weekends I engage in self-care, that's probably a pretty reasonable balance, right? But if day after day after day, it's just self-soothing, we're not going to be setting ourselves up for optimal mental or physical health in the long term, right? So doing nothing all the time, not getting out for a walk, not eating healthy, turning to substances to cope, in the long term, it actually does increase feelings of depression, low mood, anxiety, and stress rather than decrease them. So even though in the short term can feel good, in the long term, it's not going to be very helpful for us. So sometimes just doing that difficult stuff, making ourselves get up, making ourselves cook that extra meal of vegetables, or hiding our vegetables in our lasagna, whatever it might look like for you. Sometimes we just have to actually make sure we do that. And these are just a few ideas of things we can do to try and help stay connected without turning to virtual means. And these are not, it's not an exhaustive list. These are just a few ideas and a few options that might be out there. And as I'm explaining these, if you've got any more ideas in the chat, please do feel free to contribute them. So ways of making virtual time work for you, or ways of disconnecting, either or. If you have any of those in the chat or any questions, again, please make sure that you do ask those. So some options or opportunities that might be out there might include organizing a phone tree or a check-in schedule. So we all know that a lot of care homes in particular right now are facing some challenges. A lot of nonprofits are having a hard time staying engaged with their participants or their membership. Or you might just have concerns about extended family or friends, or even your children's family or friends. Or maybe you've had to lay off a lot of employees over this year. There still might be an opportunity there to be checking in and supporting folks, and it builds your own social connection as well. So it might be organizing a phone tree. So having a sign up procedure where people add their phone numbers and times that they're available. And then you call someone, then that person calls someone else, that person calls someone else. So a phone tree or phone chain, for example, or even just those regular check-ins where someone might just actually appreciate hearing from somebody every once in a while. So that can be kind of a formal idea or an informal idea. It doesn't necessarily have to be super organized. Volunteer opportunities in large part kind of dried up a bit this year, again, coming from the nonprofit lens. I know that unfortunately we didn't have the same number of opportunities for people who wanted to feel engaged because we just didn't have the same events that we normally would. But a lot of nonprofits and other organizations, like helping organizations, are still engaged in some community work in some shape or form. So something that's common right now are holiday deliveries, or even just cold weather or winter deliveries, because you can do this in a fairly contactless way. And again, I know some people, you just don't have time for this. I understand this is for folks who are looking for more ways to stay connected and to do something to feel like maybe you have some other purpose or you're part of something bigger. So if you're not looking for that, that's okay. You can tune me out for a minute. Or maybe you have some older kids at home or some staff who are looking for some other opportunities to be part of their community. So things like holiday deliveries, whether that's meals or clothing items or other essentials. There are a lot of organizations right now looking for help to do these things. So you might want to check in with one that you want to support and just see if they have any options. Again, please don't be discouraged if you call one or two and they say we actually just don't have capacity for volunteer work right now. There are some that are out there. So if you have the time to call around and find out if there's a few, or again, care homes or other organizations that could potentially use some support or some essentials. Something else that we can do is actually just working to express gratitude a little bit more often. And then once, it's not to minimize what's going on for us. It doesn't mean that you're happy for the pandemic, to be clear. But can we find those little bits and pieces throughout the day where we can smile, where we can be thankful? And I really highly recommend writing these down or sharing them with others. What you could do is even write them on little slips of paper, put them in a piggy bank or a jar. And then on those lowest of days, you open up the jar, you smash the piggy bank, and you look at all the little slips of paper that you put in there where things actually were a little bit brighter, right? Even if just a little bit. So if you're someone who enjoys the snow, on those days where we get a good downfall, right? Maybe you actually get to go skiing, you might put that in your little piggy bank, right? So I actually got to go and get outside in the snow today. That little bit of extra hour that you somehow found in the day, maybe a meeting got canceled, maybe express gratitude even for that. Little things that people have done or said to us throughout the day. Just remembering again, those please, those thank yous, the hellos, the goodbyes, all of that sort of stuff. And then those random acts of kindness. And I know that this is a little bit harder too right now because we can't necessarily just show up at people's houses or different places. We're not even really supposed to be passing a bunch of stuff around. So I know that's a challenge. But for those of you who are coming here from a workplace lens, maybe considering how we can recognize our folks at work, our employees, how we can recognize even our friends and family of employees, and what we might be able to do to just add a little bit of light, a little bit of joy into their day. Right? And so again, in the chat or in the comments or questions, I'm just going to take a moment here to see if there's anything else that's come up, any questions or any other ideas for things that are working for people. Ryan or Lucy?
I can't see anything right now. No, you're all good to continue. Sorry, you can take a second to have a break. I know you've been going through lots.
Yeah, make something up so I can have my water. No, okay, that's great. And I am rounding out here for the content that I have. So if there's any questions that are starting to pop up, now is a really great time to put them in the Q&A or in the chat, because there will be some time for those at the end. So I know they can take a moment to type those. So please put them in or start putting them in now. So those were some of the ways to make virtual time work for us, some of the ways we can disconnect and still hopefully have some connection, some meaning, some purpose, some happiness. And then before I get into some of the resources that are available to you, I will also talk about some self-compassion and empathy, as well as compassion and empathy for others. This really does come back to this idea of living with our values and in alignment with our values. So I'd really just like to remind everybody that everyone is grieving something right now. And it can be something that seems very small or trivial, or it could be something that's very large, but we are all grieving something right now. So perhaps again, that is our business, right? Or what we hoped for our business. It could have been personal goals. Some folks might have lost people to the pandemic. Some people are grieving those freedoms that they had, right? Or the freedoms that they felt they had, the travel that they wanted to do this year. I was talking to people at a credit union yesterday in a similar webinar, and a whole bunch of them had all sorts of trips planned and travel planned for this year. And of course, given the industry that you're in, you're counting on those folks, right? So you might be grieving the guests that you didn't have, the patrons you didn't have. So we're all grieving something, even those conveniences that we had, those little tiny moments with friends and family, our holiday plans. So don't trivialize what it is that you might be experiencing or that you might be grieving, and then try not to trivialize what other people are grieving right now as well. It's not about comparing or trying to win what's worse. We're all grieving something. We're all experiencing it a little bit differently. And also to recognize that some people are in it right now, like they feel this grief right now. They know that that's what they're going through. They're really awash with it right now. Other folks, it maybe isn't landed yet, right? You feel like, oh, I'm doing fine, but it's gonna land, right? I can pretty much just guarantee that, right? Maybe you're getting through it right now, but we're pretty confident working in mental health that even the folks who are gonna be getting through it just fine now, maybe it's when there's a vaccine for everyone. Maybe it's when you finally have a sigh of relief that things feel a little bit normal again, when provincial orders are lifted, whatever that might be, it's going to land for folks over potentially months or even years. So we want to have compassion for folks now, but also be prepared to have it for quite a long time to come. So some people, like I said, are just white knuckling it through the day right now, whether they're aware of it or whether they're not. And so it's going to land, it's going to be taking a lot of time to actually recoup from where we are right now. And that's, of course, financially and for your sector, but also personally, individually, in our relationships and in our families. And then kind of associated with that is this idea that most of us are not our best selves right now, whether that's us personally, our staff, patrons, clients, guests, people over the phone, people off the street who walk in. Most of us are really not our best selves, again, consciously or unconsciously. Can we cut people a little bit of slack, right? Not when it comes to safety measures, of course, we have to keep everyone safe, but can we cut people a little bit more slack as far as not taking things personally, not associating people with their worst day forever? Maybe you have a staff member or a colleague who has a complete meltdown at work at some point. Can we make sure we don't hold that against them? Right? We're going through a tough time. Most of us have never been through anything like this. We're going to react in ways that we maybe don't expect, that we don't want. And none of us want to be remembered because of our worst day, right? None of us want to be associated with that worst day as if it's like hanging over our head forever, or that it's a label on our shirt. So can we try to actually separate the behavior from people right now? So of course we are responsible for our responses. It's not a free license or reign to hurt other people or to be really nasty to people, but can we at least try to find some separation between who someone really is, right? Are they a good person? What values they have? And then what are those maybe the behaviors or things they're doing or saying right now that just aren't in alignment with that? Can we have some grace for people, right? And empathize that, once again, they might be grieving, they might be struggling. And it often, people's reaction says more about them than it does about you, right? So if someone comes in and is mad about a mask policy, that doesn't necessarily mean anything to do with how it was communicated, if it was clear or unclear. The expectations pretty much across the board right now. It's obviously a lot much more about like how much they're going through, right? What are they grieving or think that they're grieving? And what experience have they had leading up to this moment? So it doesn't mean that you don't have boundaries. You still set boundaries, but maybe we see that person again in 3 months. They come back into our business. They seem like they're fine, right? They're willing to engage in the rules that they need to. Can we still treat them with kindness and respect, right? And put kind of that other event to the side. And then a reminder that this moment right now doesn't need to define us, but it is going to have a lasting impact. So have some compassion for yourself if you slip up, if you do say that thing that you wish you didn't say and could take back, if you are a little snippy or irritable with somebody, that's going to happen. But let's just try to be our good selves as much as we can, as much as possible. And before this webinar started, I was talking to Lucy and Ryan actually about our dogs. And one of the sayings that I like for anyone who is a dog person is that we're going to try to be the person that our dog thinks we are. Or maybe you could think you want to be the person that your best friend thinks you are or wants to think you are. Let's just try our best to be in alignment with those values and then have compassion when we know that we aren't. And I'm going to move into some of the resources that are available. Because there haven't been a lot of questions and comments, I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. So I do hope that maybe if you have any questions, you can start to put them again in the Q&A or in the chat or any examples. I would love to hear those, but I will talk about some of these resources. So one, of course, this webinar right now is because of TOTA and the Thompson Okanagan Tourism Resiliency Program. And so if you have any questions about that, even feel free to put them in the chat. I will turn those over to Ryan or Lucy, and I see Ellen's on the call too. So if you have any questions about the TRP, feel free to ask them and we'll either try to answer them or we can send out some resources afterwards. But as I mentioned, I am not a financial advisor or a business advisor. So really it'll be the folks for the TRP who will be a little bit more helpful here for you. I was actually reading some of the new studies that are coming out of this time. So of course, research always has a lag behind what's actually happening in real events. But some of the things that we're starting to see come out of the research and from the limited tourism and hospitality seasons that have been able to happen this year, we're seeing increasingly requests or insight around upskilling of employees and multi-skilling of employees, really needing the limited staff that we have to be able to step up and step into all sorts of different roles. And that's quite challenging, right? That's challenging at the best of time to find people who can do that, to step into different roles, wear different hats all the time. Challenging to find people who can and also want and expect to do that. So I would assume that that's going to be one of those things that we're going to be talking about more and more, especially coming into the kind of next summer season. So, if there's anything that you kind of went through and realized would have been beneficial to you this year, really helpful, once again, for our circle of influence to consider what directional advice can we give, what advocacy can we start to do now? Since we don't really know 100% what next year is going to look like, it's not going to hurt if we start to set some of this foundation for what we're going to need next year. So there are some things around upskilling that are starting to happen, but maybe taking an inventory of what am I going to need next year for my staff. Hopefully, we've recognized that mental health supports for our staff are very foundational too. We saw a lot of concerns around physical health over the course of the year, as well as those interpersonal skills, right? So managing colleagues who take things more or less seriously than we do, or who are more or less worried about things than we do. Interpersonal skills, managing patrons and guests and inquiries for service. So thinking about what are those skills that we're going to need for either this season or moving into the next season, depending on what business you're in. What are these going to be? And just a huge encouragement there to consider what those interpersonal or soft skills are going to be, not just those technical skills or technological skills. And one of the places that can help you to do that, to think about those soft skills or other skills, is workplace strategies for mental health. So it's workplacestrategiesformentalhealth.com. That'll be on the resource sheet that we can hand out. And some of the things it talks about include the National Standard for Canada for Psychological Health and Safety in the Workplace. And in that standard, it's a voluntary standard, but it has outlined 13 different factors that can either support or challenge psychological health and safety at work. And so Workplace Strategies for Mental Health has some links to that standard, breaks down what those items are, and provides some pretty concrete tools for employees and employers and managers to try and implement some of those strategies in their workplace. And one of the things that I do quite often is some advising around the standard for workplaces. So whether we're doing some baseline assessments to determine how psychologically healthy and safe your workplace already is, or even it's just some basic employee wellness surveys, that's often where we tend to start. And then we look at where some of those gaps and opportunities are. And I'll tell you, and this is for free, one of the biggest things over and over and over again that we see is about communication. It really, really does come down to communication. So not trying to bubble wrap people and keep people from important and tough conversations and sometimes tough information that they need to know. And also just making sure that there's a very timely and consistent communication, and considering the best medium to communicate as well. So if it's something tough, something maybe even upsetting, new policies that are confusing, we probably don't want to just sandwich those into an email or a newsletter. We probably want to have some sort of roundtable or huddle or a really important group meeting or multiple small group meetings to make sure people have chances to really digest information, to ask questions, to voice concerns. And something that often happens with workplaces and managers is we're afraid that if we open up this opportunity for discussion or questions, then I'm going to have to solve everything right then and there, right? Or that people will realize I don't have it sorted out or figured out. It's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be uncomfortable. But none of that actually has to be the case. You can be pretty straightforward with folks. You can promise to get them the answers, right? To take that feedback where it needs to go and to circle back, to come back and explain. And sometimes even just that opportunity to air grievances or to air concerns helps people to realize that they're not alone in those concerns, and helps you to get at maybe the real heart of what it is that your staff might actually need, instead of guessing or again trying to put those band-aid solutions on there. So it's a long-winded explanation of, the TRP is definitely available for some more of those business side of things. Workplace Strategies for Mental Health is really great for psychological health and safety. The standard, workplace culture, and then for those, especially those in the the central Okanagan, as I said, I work for the Canadian Mental Health Association, for Thoughtful in particular, which is our workplace education and advising social enterprise. And you see that our website is at the bottom of the slide there. So thoughtful.cmhakelowna.com. So thoughtful with 2 L's. And you could, right after this or after taking a break, we have a free webinar that's on there, or sorry, a free online course that's on there as just an introduction to psychological health and safety at work. So it's about a 45-minute work at your own pace course, completely free. I'd really encourage you to start there. It helps to build the case for why mental health at work is important, and hopefully try to make it seem very doable, right? So again, right sizing it, how do I get started and why? So I'd encourage you to go to our website, check out that free course, work through it, and then at the end, there's an opportunity to let me know if you'd want to learn more, if you want to talk more about things. Those are all free resources that are available to you. And in particular, workplace strategies for mental health and our website at Thoughtful, there's stuff there for all levels of employees or employers in the workplace. So again, lots of resources that are out there. Sometimes it's just that reminder to access them or knowing where to start that can be a challenge. So those are some ideas. And then there's also community resources that are available to you, whether you're an employee or if you are looking to support your employees and want to try and point them in the right direction for some things. And if you have been in any of my webinars before, you've heard the spiel about some of these, but I will reiterate it. For folks who are in need of kind of coaching or counseling, sooner rather than later in particular, there is something called Bounce Back BC, and actually it was just expanded Canada-wide. But Bounce Back is available as a telecoaching service where you enroll, you receive a package of materials based on cognitive behavioral skills. So challenging your thinking, challenging the healthy coping behaviors you have or don't have, or virtual modules that are available. And again, these are all free resources. So Bounce Back is out there for any folks. And they also have a youth version. So even though we're here in the lens of workplace and sector and industry, we know that what happens in your personal life and your home life, especially right now with a lot of virtual learning and challenges with childcare, what's happening personally and professionally is probably kind of blending into each other quite a bit. And we know that we don't leave those problems at the door. So there is also some of these resources for youth and for our family too. So Bounce Back's available to anyone, including that youth version. There's also virtual counseling that we're offering. And this one in particular is for more central Okanagan. So I'd encourage you to check with the health authority or with your local CMHA branch if you're outside of the central Okanagan to find out what virtual counseling might be available to you. But for those in the central Okanagan in particular, there is virtual counseling that's being offered. You're probably not going to get a same day appointment, but you can book one fairly soon. And that for us is through Foundry Kelowna. And Foundry Kelowna, you might be familiar with, is the Integrated Youth Clinic on Kirshner Avenue in Kelowna. But there's the virtual counseling is also available for adults right now due to funding related to COVID-19. So it hasn't always been around. I don't know if it'll always be around in the future, but right now, at least, we do have virtual counseling for adults. So you would want to call Foundry Kelowna, book an appointment, and just make sure you let them know it's for virtual counseling for adults. They'll ask just a little bit of your personal information anyways, so they shouldn't funnel you to the wrong spot, but it is worth just saying upfront that you're looking for virtual counseling for adults, unless you're 24 or under, in which case you could still fall under the youth counseling as well. And just a little note about this, the type of counseling that they offer is not going to be what you might kind of stereotypically expect. You're not going to be assigned one therapist, for example, that you work with on a monthly basis. It's actually a team-based approach, and it is a very problem-solving approach. So you're not going to be calling and talking for hours and hours about your childhood experiences. It is very action-oriented. What are your top priorities right now? What is causing you the highest level of stress and anxiety right now? What are some practical tools, tips, and takeaways and strategies that you can use? So it's very action-oriented. You work with a team. So you have a meeting with one person, they take that back to their counseling team, and then they come back to you. So you get actually the brain power of multiple people. And then if you call and book another appointment in another time, you might not have the exact same person, but you will have the similar team that they're reporting to. So if you have any questions about that, you can go to Foundry Kelowna or give them a call. And in the resource sheet that I send out, they'll have all of the information about this. Some other options if you want to learn more, if you do like this webinar format, there's our Discovery College arm, and you can be anywhere in the province or Canada right now to access our Discovery College, even though it's in Kelowna. Everything's virtual and free, and you just sign up for the webinars. They're offered live, just like this one is. And they talk about a lot of things like boundaries, more into self-care versus self-soothing, so even more into that and how to kind of determine those differences. They also have some more workshops related to your circle of control, They've had some that are specific to caregivers. So they're not workplace focused, but they're personal strategies and basic strategies that will serve you in all sorts of different places and spaces. And then the last one that I have here as well is Here to Help BC, which is just a website, but it has a lot of different fact sheets. So we didn't get into anxiety and depression or bipolar disorder or schizophrenia in this workshop. But if you are curious about those and you want to learn more, Here to Help BC is a great resource for that. And what I also like about them is that they have a journal called Visions. So it is I think right now it's a quarterly publication, edited like any other journal or magazine would be. And all of the stories that come in are based on a specific topic for each issue. And everyone who writes in has lived experience of that issue or that topic. And they do often have a workplace issue that comes out. And what I like is that you do get the good, the bad, and the ugly. So it's not just a bunch of happy stories or when everything went perfectly. You're going to hear stories or read stories about people who did disclose challenges at work and their manager didn't understand, wasn't supportive, and then it's informational about what they wish their manager could have done, just as an example. Or someone who is a parent of a youth experiencing high levels of anxiety, and it's what they wish they knew or what they've learned along the way, or a young person who's been experiencing whatever the topic might be and how they've coped and what's been working for them. So you really do get the whole gamut of experiences. And I think that's extremely important to balance out with the more clinical side of things, kind of more cut and dry side of things, just to make sure that you're really and truly understanding what folks are experiencing, if it's about a specific issue or what your employees might be experiencing at work. So those are the key resources that I have and that you'll get on that resource sheet. And I'm going to check again now for any time related to comments or questions.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Aaryn, for that amazing presentation. So much valuable information and clearly a very important topic. We do have some questions that I can share with you. So number one, any tips for helping / supporting team members when personal energy or capacity may be low?
Yeah, that's great. And I know that that can be a huge challenge in particular because you really do need employees to be still doing their jobs, right? You still need them to be stepping up. And so sometimes giving them extra time or changing or reducing their workload is a bit of a challenge. So the first thing I would do is just encourage you to be as patient as you can, to listen, to be curious, to kind of ask questions about what that individual might need. So what are their worries? What might they need to feel supported at work? And then, as I said, if you're asking those questions or opening the door to those discussions, it doesn't mean you're saying yes to everything in that moment, but you could really kind of put some of that work back onto the employee to say, what do you need? Let me know what sorts of things might be helpful to you, and then bring it back and let's discuss what is doable. So it, again, doesn't have to be you being the problem solver for everything. You're probably not an expert in disability management or accommodation. So you can actually put some of the onus back onto that employee to let you know what sort of things would start this discussion about what you need. And of course, if they come back and there's things that are really difficult to do, I would strongly suggest that you reach out to a specific HR or disability management consultant, or to even to WorkSafe BC, because before you shut down any potential accommodation, you want to make sure you're actually still within your rights and responsibilities as a manager and an employer, and that employee's rights and responsibilities are also being met. So just very quickly about that, if you have any reason to suspect that there could be a specific diagnosis for someone, like maybe you think it might be anxiety, you don't want to ask. In fact, you should not ask. To be clear, you should not ask about any diagnosis or specific illness or condition, but you can ask what they might need to be well at work. They might say, I don't know. You could encourage them to reach out to a health professional to help them to come back to you with some ideas around accommodations. If it's not really getting to that point where a formal accommodation is needed, we still want to listen and bounce some ideas back and forth, see what might be doable. Maybe it's a change in tasks or a change in role or a work share. That could be super useful. And also even to just acknowledge and honor what that person is experiencing. So sometimes you don't even have to jump to solutions necessarily, but just to say, I hear you, right? Let's talk about it. Thank you for sharing that with me. A lot of us have probably had those managers or supervisors where we couldn't talk to them about anything or you're afraid to. So just to at least honor that someone had the bravery to come in to tell you that maybe they needed something, or to open up and have that conversation with you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Aaryn. And that extends really nicely to the second question, which is understanding some of the signs to recognize burnout or the need for support in your employees or co-workers.
Great. Yeah. That's a great question. We have a whole workshop actually on some other signs of stress and stress management, as well as management training called Responding with Respect. That really gets much more in depth to this. But one of the biggest things to pay attention to is just going to be changes in that employee's behavior, or even in your own behavior. So I know this is a bit of a challenge if it's a new employee or we don't know that much about them, but changes is really what we want to pay attention to. So somebody who is normally more of an extrovert, they're outgoing, they have great customer service skills, great interpersonal skills, and now you notice that they're starting to get a little bit more short with people, or irritable, withdrawing, isolating, or for example, if you have someone whose attention to detail is normally really high, and now they're starting to make kind of really silly mistakes or unexpected mistakes. Anything that's a significant change or consistent subtle changes with somebody could be enough to start that conversation. And what we always encourage is that you start with what it is that you've noticed, not in an accusatory way, just in a very curious and careful, professional way. But these are the things that I've noticed that have been different for you, or a change for you. These are the impacts it's having on the workplace. So this is making a case for, why am I asking in the first place? Why am I talking about this? And then once again, turning it back to them and asking, what can I do to support you? What could the workplace do to support you based on these things that we're noticing? But really it comes to changes. And I really like that this question is asked, because a lot of the times what we actually think is that it's not my business to notice or to ask about it. It's not professional to notice or to ask, but actually it's the opposite. As a coworker, a manager, or a supervisor, you'll often actually be one of the first people to notice. And even before the person themselves notices sometimes. So if we think of kind of stress or burnout as a continuum, people are often much further along or further down that continuum than they realize that they are. And you asking or noticing or starting this conversation with them can help be that light bulb moment that maybe they do need some extra support. Maybe they're not keeping it together at work as well as they thought that they were. And you can actually kind of interrupt that cycle that can start at the workplace that leads to a poor professional reputation or damage to their reputation, burning bridges with their coworkers or their employer, or even just the fallout from really bad customer service that could happen if somebody is really struggling at work. So it is definitely your business to be noticing and to have the conversations in a caring and compassionate way. And really it will come down to changes. We all know those employees who are just always a little bit short, or really blunt or to the point, or those ones who just always wear their emotions on their sleeve. So that wouldn't necessarily concern me. But as soon as you see a change in character for somebody, or a change in their work or their abilities at work, that would be enough to have a bit of a conversation about it. And that just goes back to that idea of timely communication too. So if you're noticing something now, maybe you have a 3-month or 6-month review set up for them later on. You don't want to wait till that review or that evaluation to bring something up. You want to bring it up as soon as you've kind of noticed this to be a consistent thing or a significant pattern. You'd want to bring it up sooner rather than later.
And then just to add to that, Aaryn, how would you suggest that you could recognize some of those characteristics in yourself if you didn't realize that you might be in that same situation?
Yeah, well, one of the ways for sure, and if you participate in something like Bounce Back or talk therapy, they'll really start to get you to think about your thinking. So noticing some of those thinking traps, writing them down even. So things like journaling, it doesn't have to be detailed, but just trying to get a glimpse of, what's kind of the general affect or mood that I've been in, right? And noticing, have I been more down lately? Have I been more fatigued? Have I been less motivated? Of course, a really important sign to watch out for is, am I feeling less interested in the things I'm normally passionate about, those hobbies that I would normally have? Am I checking in with people as often as I normally would? Even having sometimes those really blunt and honest conversations with friends, family, or coworkers, even just having that bravery to say, I felt a little bit off. Have you noticed anything, right? Have you noticed any changes? And sometimes they can maybe shed some light on that for you as well. But a big one will certainly be trying to be aware of those thinking patterns, thinking traps, the story that you're telling yourself. And if it tends to be in a very negative or unhelpful way, that could be a pretty good sign to us that we're probably also, again, not acting in alignment with how we want to be. So paying attention to those changes for ourselves, checking in with a trusted friend or family member, journaling so you can actually look back and a little bit more objectively see what trends or differences there might be. Those would be some of the things to keep in mind. And a lot of us too sometimes feel like we can't reach out to a counselor, or we can't reach out for some other help unless we feel like we're really struggling or we're really in it. But actually building a relationship with a health professional in some shape or form, again, even if it's just like a phone check-in every once in a while, or checking in with the 310 mental health line that's out there, doing that on kind of a regular basis can also help to get you used to thinking about your thinking and paying attention to how you're feeling. And especially if it's with a consistent healthcare professional, they start to know also what's normal for you and what's not. And they might be able to point out some of those things that are changing for you or challenging you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Aaryn. The next question is around individual perspectives, and are there any processes that people can take to getting really clear on what their own personal values are?
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm a very visual person. I like to do this actually as a craft more than anything. So even just trying to like write down all of the things that come to mind when it comes to your values, your goals, your milestones, just kind of brainstorming, writing down all of that sort of stuff that just comes to mind, sitting with it a little bit, right? Maybe you go back through and then you circle the stuff that keeps coming back to you, or you can find some common themes in those things that come to mind, or you sleep on it and you come back to it a couple of days later. What still resonates with you? What doesn't? Some people actually like to do like mood boards, almost like the marketing exercise, where you're just even collecting a bunch of like pictures and phrases and clips of things that really speak to you. Those can be different ways too to try and sort through the stuff that stands out to you and the stuff that's important to you. And then nothing really beats just a good conversation about it as well. So you might just start a conversation about what's important, what are your values, what have you been feeling a little disconnected from lately, and just sometimes that bouncing back and forth with someone else, they can highlight some things that are important to them, or things that they know about you, or that they've come to know about you, and that can also start to sometimes highlight that stuff for you as well. And as a family, like I said, just brainstorming it, writing it all out there. Collage too. Sometimes we actually just don't have the words ourselves, but if we're reading them or we have them in front of us, we can actually still just pick them out. So that can also be a good activity to do.
Brilliant. And then one final question, Aaryn, and quite ironic because we are on Zoom itself, but is Zoom fatigue a real thing? And is there anything we can do beyond what you've already mentioned regarding virtual meetings that we could consider or do about it?
Yeah. So it's a real thing, as far as it's certainly a very common phenomenon that we seem to all, or many of us seem to be experiencing, right? There's kind of a reason that this word has come into existence. As far as, would you get a diagnosis of Zoom fatigue? That would be very unlikely. It hasn't made it into the diagnosis and statistics manual. So it's not a condition as far as what you would normally consider it to be. And how long it'll continue past the pandemic, I'm not sure, but it's real enough as far as it's a very common experience, and it's something to pay attention to. And also something to, once again, have some compassion for ourselves and empathy for others if they are expressing it or if you're feeling it. And it is very normal, because if we just think of all of the senses that have to be engaged, we think about the light and its effect on your eyes, just those associations that we have with having to be seated and staring at a screen. I think, you can probably even see above me, I've got also just a very harsh kitchen light that tends to contribute to a lot of eye strain. You tend to have a lot of different things moving on a screen at the same time, potentially different voices cutting in. You're getting some of the nonverbals that you would get from people, but not all of them, not the whole picture. So it really makes sense that it's quite overwhelming to the senses. It is quite tiring to be processing all of this as it's going along. And even just thinking about, waiting for your time to talk, right? When do you pause for others? When do you hold space for others? When's it your time to chime in? Thinking and overthinking all of those sorts of things that are really just exacerbated by having video and lots of people there. And sometimes maybe even those rules and guidelines and etiquette around it, we're still figuring it all out. So it makes a lot of sense that it's quite fatiguing and exhausting for people. So it's real in that sense. As far as things to do, some of them I mentioned, as you said, Ryan, but really, I think taking breaks is going to just be the most consistent thing, trying to disconnect sometimes. If you're a manager or a supervisor or employer, or you're trying to just organize things with your friend group, maybe considering, does this have to happen over Zoom? Could it still maybe happen over the phone so someone can walk and talk, right? They could still go for a walk around, like you might have a walking meeting. Is it something that needs to be scheduled and we need to spend an hour and a half or 2 hours or 3 hours on it? Or maybe once again, we can actually break it into some smaller communication. So I think we're just going to have to continue to be very creative around this. But yeah, not necessarily just jump to Zoom for everything. And I was talking to somebody about this the other day too, which is about like Zoom replacing in-person meetings makes a lot of sense to me. It's sensible that that's what we switched to. But it also seems like Zoom's replaced a lot of phone calls as well. So something that would normally just be a quick 15-minute call is now turning into like an hour-long Zoom. And I don't think everything has to turn out this way or be scheduled or formatted this way. So if it was going to be an in-person meeting, going to something like Zoom makes a lot of sense. If it's something that really would have been a lot more unstructured, like walking down the hall to your coworker, or walking to the back room for your coworker, maybe that can be approached in a slightly different way, whether that's instant messaging or a phone call as well.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. That's all the questions we have today, Aaryn. And as always, it's such a pleasure to have you come and present to us. And I just want to thank you for the amount of time it's taken to pull that together. Personally, I've taken so much from what you did today, and I'm sure the audience has as well. Finally, I want to thank the attendees for joining us today. If you do have any questions that you think of after this session, then you can reach me at digital@totabc.com. And if you would like to receive any additional information on the Resiliency program, then please head to tourismresiliency.ca. You can sign up to the program by selecting your region and tourism partner at the top. And also, please watch your inbox because I'll be sharing the recording from today's session. And finally, I would just like to say happy holidays and please continue to stay safe and look after yourself and the ones around you. Thanks again, Aaryn, and I look forward to working with you in the new year and seeing all of you in 2021.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.